So going into our main topic, which is geography, we're going to be taking the students to Churchill Island Farm and Cape Williamy of Phillip Island. Those are the two places we're going to be going. And the reason why this is relevant is because it really does match up nicely to biomes and food security. Because in this, students will be looking at abiotic and non-biotic elements in an environment and how they interrelate with each other. They'll also be looking at how soils and vegetation sort of affect the productivity of a land and how environmental, economic, technological factors influence crop yields. So they'll also be linking that into history, which we'll go into a little bit later. And they'll be looking at land and resource management strategies used by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to achieve security over time. Now, why I have specifically mentioned that is because we'll be looking at how the indigenous people who originally inhabited the land cultivated food, and we're going to juxtapose that to how the European settlers did this. Okay, so that's why we have included those. So our first supporting curriculum will be science, and the reason why we've selected science is because we truly believe that this will be a very, very, very good excursion for the science department to showcase to the students the effects of climate change. And the particular point here is obviously we've got erosion and the developing climate, but we've also got the footbridge, and the footbridge was built because the sea levels had risen too high for people to cross anymore. So being able to see that footbridge for their own eyes, they'll be able to draw hypotheses and connections to the stuff that they're learning in science, and perhaps come up with some conclusions or some deductions of what perhaps this means for the future. So history, we've selected history mainly in the purpose of supporting the argument for going on this excursion, because we do believe that there are some really, really strong links we can make here with history. We've got Churchill Island and Cape Williamy. Mainly this is all about the European settlement, because this was the first island in which European settlers cultivated the land properly in Victoria. So we've listed and highlighted a number of curriculum links that can be used here, but this is mainly a supporting curriculum link to the other two. So we've got a number of pedagogical considerations that we've listed here. The first is Vygotski's constructionist theory, which basically it has been selected because the students will be doing this excursion towards the end of the unit, but before the assessment, and so they'll be building on their knowledge. Gardner's multiple intelligences. This excursion really focuses on the kinesthetics. So those students who perhaps struggle in the mainstream classroom, getting them outside and enjoying, learning through physically being there. This is a great opportunity for them as well as the rest of the class. And we have inquiry learning. This is hopefully going to be a new experience for all of the students there. So when they do come here, they will be discovering everything that they see for the first time, and this will actually enhance their learning. And we have finally an integrated approach. So by combining history, science, and geography, we're able to make that interlocking connection. And if we do that successfully, and we believe this will be able to be done successfully through this program, the students will get a deeper experience and more meaningful learning because of it. Okay, so all things come down to numbers. So we've got a quote for $400 for a 62-seater bus. That'll carry all the students and volunteers and teachers. We have that quote from Carrum Downs School. The reason why it's that price is, and it's the last dot point there, is because it is in school hours. So between 9 and 3. Okay, that's when it'll be done. It'll be $6.60 for the students to enter the Churchill Island. So all up, summarized $14.60 per the student. And the reason why we have decided to charge $15 per student is because we want to eliminate the cost for our volunteers coming, because we do appreciate them coming. So we want to, if possible, completely eliminate the costs. So 40 cents from each student will be going to them.
The second half of this presentation will be explaining the description of the fieldwork to you so that you can see why we would like to go on it. So of course the fieldwork, as mentioned earlier, is to Phillip Island, and it involves going to Cape Williamy and also Churchill Island. The aim of this field trip is to provide students with learning experiences to be actively learning by researching and investigating multiple topics, and these can come from the subjects of history, geography and science, and it just puts them all into a real life perspective that they are in front of them in multiple locations. They will then use the research that they conducted while on the field trip to create a poster which will be assessed, and that will be part of their major mark in geography. The field trip will involve catching a bus to Phillip Island with the whole of Year 9s of Leongatha Secondary School. It is within school hours, so therefore no additional hours for teachers or students is required for the day. Throughout the day, there is food and toilet breaks within the allocated time while visiting 2 locations on Phillip Island, all of which will make a contribution towards their assessment. The activities will involve students being in groups of 5 to gather and collect research both prior and on the day. The first location students will visit is Cape Woolamai. Students will work through the worksheets in their groups. This will provide students with the opportunity to investigate the types of hazards while looking at the cause, impact, human responses and management. There are multiple hazards students will investigate while at Cape Woolamai, including oil spill, marine debris and marram grass. At this location, it will involve students looking at intended and unintended effects in events that have occurred while looking at biomes. The second location is Churchill Island. This location will allow students to compare the past to the present and evaluate the sustainability of the society while looking at major locations and buildings that have an impact on the island. They'll also look at the effects that European settlement and climate change has had on the island, both in a positive and negative way. The organisation of the fieldwork will involve planning an itinerary for the day, which has already been put together as a draft, and that will give a basic understanding of how the day would be set out and the activities that will be undertaken. The main cost for the day would be the bus hire, which is approximately $400. This then has space for all Year 9s, making it a full year level camp. Once at Phillip Island, students will visit 2 places, which involves Cape Woolamai and Churchill Island. Cape Woolamai will involve no expenses to the students, while Churchill Island will cost approximately $6.60 per student to enter the premises. In regards to first aid, at least one of the teachers will have it, therefore they can be used if needed. The other thing to take into consideration is that if there are multiple parents or carers that put their hand up to volunteer for the day, those that have the first aid will be of preference. There will be many resources that will be used prior, during and after the field trip to provide the best experience to the students. Prior to the field trip, students will mainly use online resources to find reliable facts and information to put together. During the field trip, students will have signs and flyers from the locations that will have relevant information required. While creating the poster, students will have the opportunity to do additional research while using the information collected on the day of the field trip using their resources that they had available. In regards to strategies, it will involve cooperative learning when out on the field trip. As said, students will be in groups of 5 and will need to work together to complete all questions. This will involve students coming up with their own way to get through all the questions within the allocated time at each location. By also having groups, it involves if a student can't make it to the day, they still have their group, which can give them information that they need, which they couldn't find online. Another strategy that will be used is involving parents and carers within the excursion. So the school will be asking for volunteers with working with children's checks to supervise groups for the day. And this could also be involved in helping students prior to the field trip with the pre-field questions, and that's just not available to parents who can volunteer on the day. It's available to all with a student in that year level. In conclusion of the field trip, there will be an assessment item which is a poster summarising the field trip, and on that poster they have to have facts in relation to science, history and geography, along with including the 2 locations. The worksheet that they completed on the day, of course, will have all the information relevant to putting on to their poster, as well as them having the choice to do additional research. Since the topics in geography cover a substrand, it will be worth 20% of their major mark for that semester. This will, of course, encourage students to participate as best they can on the day, as all this information is required after. This obviously benefits students and the school by providing a real life experience as to where you can apply geography, history and science into real life situations without being at too much of a cost to the students.